So this is tip 13-2 on what an offense needs. And the topic here is we can't run outside because the defensive ends are too good. Well, what we need to know first is what do we mean by and why are they, quote, too good? So the first thing is what are their responsibilities? And we know that if we attack them on the front side in the C and D gaps, which they play if there's no tight end or tight end, that they have outside contain. So this is, we're talking about a defensive end who's really good when he gets a reach block by the offensive tackle, that he gets up the field really good and he plays that really well. The second responsibility they have is backside pursuit. And so now we're talking about being too good. They really chase the running back down. So if the running back's to them, the tackle is blocking to the second level, and he comes flat down the line of scrimmage, tie off that tackle, and he pursues our running back. So he's really good at that. The third thing is we run directly at him, and their hit and shed is really good. So we're trying to run right at him. We take our tackle and get on him, but he locks us up and he sheds us, and he can make a play really good. So those are the things that we're talking about that a defensive end does that makes them too good. Okay? Well, you notice here that they're responsible for the C and D gaps. And then in terms of backside pursuit, you just have to watch and see, are they going to chase the running back if you hand it to them or if you fake it to them? Are they going to sit and play the quarterback as he comes back? But in either case, they're not playing the A and B gaps. And so the question is, why are they not playing the A and B gaps? Well, number one, they're too far away. Okay? So if you run right up behind the outside hip of the guards and you stay in this area, they're too far away to make a play on that. If you do the right track with the running back and you give him basically a midline run where he could shuffle over and head down the midline, and then he could head in any of these directions, which could be an A or a B gap. Okay? They're too far away to make a play. And we've seen that when we've designed our blocking schemes where sometimes we don't even block them, and we run A and B gaps and they can't get in and make a play because they're too far away. All right? If you look at the no tight end formation, we see that they have the C gaps because the 3 technique has the B, the Mike has the A, the Shade has the A, and the Will has the B. So we know that they are designed as defensive ends to keep contained on the outside of the offensive tackles. And then, which is way too far to be able to come inside here. Okay? And then if we put a tight end in and we even widen this defensive end from a 5 to a 7, he's even wider. So our strategy is going to be, first of all, is to understand that we want to run up inside these A and B gaps and neutralize them by keeping them farther outside in their area of responsibility. All right? Our second strategy is to have multiple blocking schemes to attack each of these 3 techniques. And what we want to do there is we're going to use different blocking schemes to slow them down. A lot of times what you see when these defensive ends are really good is they put their hand in the dirt, they kind of tilt themselves in, and then when the ball's snapped, they just make a beeline straight through the outside shoulder of that offensive tackle. Or if he's a tight end, through the inside shoulder. Because they figure, well, we can't be wrong. If he blocks us, then we'll just hit, and they're running at us, we'll just hit and shed him, and we have more momentum coming off the ball than he does. And if it's far away, then we can just flatten out, pursue down the line of scrimmage. Okay? Then if it's a pass or some type of outside contain, it's even easier for us to be able to engage him and then contain outside. So they have nothing to lose by doing that. So the only way to overcome that mindset, if they put their hand in the dirt and do that, is to give them different blocking schemes. That is, they don't know who's going to block them in this interior, where it's going to come from. So to do that, we are going to show, and I'm going to draw for you, the blocking scheme. So when the no tight end, we're going to run an inside zone where we're going to drive block them. We're going to run an inside zone where we're going to pass set. Okay? So we're going to give them a pass set and make them think it's pass, and then basically we're going to run inside zone, which you would call a draw. It looks like a draw, and when I've run this in the past, you can even hear the defenders yelling, "Hey, it's a draw, it's a draw." Well, for us, it's just inside zone, it just gives them the appearance that we're running pass. So we're trying to confuse them. Give them a pass set, but run an inside zone. We're going to run the G pull. We're going to run the power. And then with the tight end, we're going to run sweep. We're going to run outside zone. And we're going to run a long trap. Now, you may not run all of these in a game, but what you do when you scout them is you see what they're really good at in these responsibilities, and then you can prepare with these kind of schemes to be able to confuse them and slow those defensive ends down by creating a mindset where they're not sure who's going to block them. And what I found is if you do that even to the best defensive ends, if you create confusion as to who's going to block them, they all slow down. Because we know one thing, defenders don't like to get trap blocked. They don't like to get a block that they can't see coming at them. So that's kind of what our theme is going to be here when we draw up these blocking schemes. So let's look at some blocking schemes with no tight end that will slow down the defensive ends, because as we talked about, we want to give them multiple block reads to slow down their charge. Because a lot of times the defensive coordinator will simply tell them to line up on the outside shoulder, get in a sprinter stance, and just attack the outside shoulder of that offensive tackle. Because whether it's a pass or a run, they can be right with regard to being aggressive off the ball. So the first one we're going to talk about is inside zone. And in this particular scenario, we're going to drive block or seal block the defensive ends. So we're going to run on the midline. We talked about that we want to stay between the outside hip of both of these guards and preferably the A gap or the midline. Okay? So we're going to take the right tackle and we're going to step with our inside foot and put our face on the inside armpit breastplate and keep him in his C gap. Okay? Then we're going to do the same to the 3 technique. Step with the inside foot, put your face in the side armpit breastplate. The center is going to step with his right foot, climb the A gap and block the Mike linebacker. And the left guard is going to scoop, step with his right foot, and going to scoop and aim for the inside or the far armpit breastplate. On the back side, this offensive tackle on the left has what we call the 18-inch cutoff. Okay? And what that means is, from film study, we can decide how this tackle or these defensive ends would respond to this tackle if he just simply went and blocked the will linebacker. Would he come down hard or would he sit and squeeze that? So we take the 18-inch cutoff step and read what that 5 technique is going to do. So if 5 technique wants to come down hard when we do that, we'll just turn and block him. If he doesn't and he allows us to release, then we'll go get the will linebacker and we'll allow the quarterback to influence him by after he hands off, running outside path toward him and holding him. Okay? So in this particular instance, in the inside zone, the way we run it here, we're going to try to drive block this defensive end and we're going to seal this defensive end. So that's the first read we've given them. The other thing that I found at doing offensive line for 17 years is you get a lot of defensive coaches that will do swim techniques. And they'll just tell everybody as soon as the ball snapped, go ahead and try to swim that gap. And we had 2 teams in particular that would do this every single play and to see how you would respond. So what we did for an entire game one time is we pass set when we ran inside zone. So what would happen is all the offensive linemen would take a short step, 16 step back, shoulder high hat, and pass set. And then that would encourage these guys to run upfield. And I coached them to, hey, most of the time these guys always would swim to the outside and to the B gap because the linebackers had this Mike had the A gap. So I said, as soon as you see their arms start to come up, punch their chest. So that's why we short set that. And so what would happen is is we would pass set, they'd run up the field, and we'd be running an inside zone in the back, and we do inside zone blocking, meaning that's their responsibilities. They have the same guys as you see here. We're just not drive blocking, we're pass setting, okay? And what it looks like a draw, and it was very effective, because when we did play action, or when we did a run play inside zone, they had no idea which one it was, and they had to slow down to try to figure that out. So you can pass set, or you can drive and seal block. So just in this one play, we've given the defensive ends 3 different techniques that they've seen in terms of blocks to help slow them down. The next thing that we did is we did what we call G-pull. And so what we would do here is, when we would run this, we would run it to the shade and the 5 technique to isolate on this will linebacker. And so what we would do here is, over on this side, we could either drive this 5 technique or we could pass set him. So once again, just depending on scouting, just depending on in the game, is what he really wanted to react to. If he was pretty passive off the line, we'd go ahead and drive block him. Put our face in the inside armpit breastplate and drive him at a 45-degree angle out there. If he was real aggressive, then we pass set. So we're not just going to stick to one particular thing. We're going to see how he wants to play us. All right? With the left guard, we're going to block down on the shade. The center's going to step in his A-gap. And if you'll notice, this looks really similar to inside zone. So we're going to give the inside people a pretty similar look with regard to that. So it's hard for them to figure out what play is actually coming. Then we take the right guard, pull around, and we'll lead up on the will linebacker. And then we'll scoop the 3 technique. And in this case, we're not even going to block the 5. And I put a circle with a little slash there. It looks like a Q, because I'm telling the quarterback, you've got to block that 5 technique. Now, I don't literally mean he's going to go up and physically block him. What I mean is he's responsible for a great fake to pull this to make it look like he's running a bootleg action, or that he might be running a quarterback keeper, okay? If in fact this 5 technique chased down real hard, then we would have him pull and keep the ball and be able to run that play also. But I never liked the quarterback to be able to run that ball, but he can if that 5 techniques come down. In this particular instance, when the Mike linebacker is this far inside, 99% of the time that 5 technique is going to take the quarterback. So already we've gotten a drive and pass set, unblocked, we've got a drive and a seal, and we've got pass set. So we're giving these defensive ends different looks, and we're still running plays that we really feel comfortable with. We can block, and we can slow them down, because remember, we can't run outside because they're too good at containing the play. All right? The other thing we've done is you can change up this G-pull to become a G-trap or kickout, and so that the backside or the front side left tackle now can just simply go block the will, and then you can take the guard and kick out the 5 technique. So you can switch that play up with one simple adjustment in the assignment between the left tackle and the guard in terms of who he's going to kick out or who he's going to pull up into the hole on, and give the defensive end a different look. The last possible scheme is this is what I call the one-back power. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to double the 3 technique to the Mike, and we're going to kick out the defensive end of the 5 technique on the side where the 3 technique is. Okay? 18-inch cutoff in the back. The quarterback would be responsible for him if the left tackle went to the will, and then we're going to block back on the shade, seal him. So now we got a way to trap or kick out the 5 technique or defensive end on the 3 technique side as well as on the shade side. Okay? So what we've done here is on inside zone, we've given these deep reads to the defensive ends. You could get a drive or a seal, you could get a pass set, or they could get an 18-inch cutoff. On the G-pull, we could get a drive, a pass set, he could be unblocked, or we could trap him or kick him out. And then in the power, we got the 18-inch cutoff and we got the kick-out trap. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to slow down defensive ends who are really aggressive up the field and don't allow us to run outside. So instead of just trying to keep running outside and fight what they're strong at, we're just going to say, okay, we're going to run up inside you. We're going to give you multiple looks to slow you down, so then we can do our outside run game. So those are the blocking schemes that we would use from no tight ends to slow down defensive ends with multiple block reads. So let's talk about tight end side blocking schemes and runs that we can do to slow down these defensive ends that are too good. So the first one we're going to run is we're going to run sweep. And so we've got the tight end over to the right, and what we're going to do is we're going to block down on this defensive ends. As I alluded to earlier, blocking down on a defensive end or defensive tackle is not something that they like. Obviously they work on it, but they don't like those blocks that come from their blind side. So we're going to block down on the 7 technique. We're going to pin the 3 technique, and the play side guard's going to pull tight around, and he's responsible for the alley player. In this case, he's going to kick out the Sam linebacker, who should, when he sees the running back coming, come up to be the alley and the outside run contain. Okay? The center will block back on the shade, and the backside or the left guard will pull, and he's going to go around this 7 technique down block, and he's going to have the Mike linebacker who will be pursuing as he reads the backfield and sees the running back heading to his left or our right. So he's responsible for him. Okay? The backside tackle has what we've talked about a lot, is the 18-inch cutoff. He steps with his right foot in the B gap, makes sure the 5 technique's not blitzing or stunning that gap, and then he heads to block the will linebacker. This play fake should hold that will linebacker and that backside end, okay? So a good fake here holds these 2, which allows this to take place. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, I have this 5 technique end circled with a line because that means that's quarterback's man. So a good fake, he'll roll out and he'll hold that 5 technique. So this is pin and pull is what we're going to accomplish by trying to slow that 7 technique defensive end down. The second scheme that we'll do is we'll do outside zone to the defensive end who's playing on the tight end side. And when we run outside zone, we're going to do the typical rules that you see, which is over here, when you're covered, the guy next to you is uncovered. He's responsible for basically an overtake block, meaning the tight end's going to come, hold up the 7 technique so that the right tackle can come and overtake him, then he's going to release and he's got the Sam linebacker. Okay, so it starts out as a double team, which once again should slow down those defensive ends' charge. And then as we go down the line of scrimmage, the center and the right guard are going to do reach and overtake with the 3 technique. So the right guard is going to go to his outside armpit breastplate. The center is going to look for his inside armpit breastplate. Depending on how the 3 technique plays it, if the 3 technique's really aggressive and runs down the line, then the right guard's responsible for him, and the center will turn back on the mic. If the right guard can reach the 3, then he'll take the mic linebacker, and the center will take the 3 technique. Okay? On the backside, the left guard's responsible for the shade, and you would want to cut his split down to do that. As a line coach for 17 years, I never cared if they wanted to know what they thought the play was going to be by our split. So I tell that offensive lineman, look, if you can't get there because when the center leaves, that shade is really aggressive and running behind him and playing off his backside, then you simply cut your split down to 1 foot, 6 inches. I don't really care. You just make sure that you can scoop him and cut him off. And if you need to cut him, you can cut him on the backside. I don't typically like to do that. I like them to stay on their feet. But all I care about is take a split where you can get that shade. Okay? On the backside, we're not going to worry about the 18-inch cutoff. We're going to tell this left tackle to go immediately and run a track to the A gap so that he can intercept the will linebacker. once again, we should be able to make that happen if we have a good fake right here with the running back and the quarterback. And the quarterback's responsible for this 5 technique, not allowing him to chase. So that's the outside zone. The third thing that we would run at a defensive end on the tight end side is we're going to run what I call the one back power. And the reason I call that is because we're going to double the 3 technique to the mic to get a good movement off that 3 technique. And then we're going to kick that 7 technique out. Okay? We're going to influence in him to sit and slow down by taking the tight end and arc releasing him to the Sam linebacker, which should slow him down a little bit and give this guy time to pull and stay tight off the double team and kick out the 7 technique, looking at his inside armpit breastplate to do that, okay? And that's the left guard that would pull and kick it. The center is going to pin and seal the shade. And back here on the backside, the left tackle is going to do his 18-inch cutoff with the mesh holding these 2 guys. And then the running back's path is always, as he gets to straight across, speed across the ball, and then downhill as tight as you can off the double team into that hole, okay? So what we've done here to the tight end side to slow these defensive ends who are really good down is we block down on him, we give him a double team, and we've kicked him out. And you can do this to either side, obviously. You can put the tight end on the left if that guy's better than the defensive end on the right, and you can run all these blocking schemes at him then, okay? So in some of the teaching of this tight end and no tight end, you want to emphasize is to make sure that the quarterback must hold the backside defensive end. So a lot of times you get a quarterback who's in a hurry and he doesn't make a good fake, or he hands it off and he stands there and watch. When you give him the responsibility of this backside defensive end, you can then hold him accountable for taking the ball, good mesh, and running and seeing what the defensive end is going to do. So I used to always tell the quarterbacks, look, I can see what the end's going to do too. So if you come to the line, come to the sideline after we run a series and you tell me that defensive end is not paying attention to you, that he knows you're not going to carry the ball, maybe he hasn't seen on film study, or we haven't let you carry the ball the whole game, at just the right time, particularly when you're in the plus 20, because I like to score on this, I'm going to have you fake it and pull it and take off with it, okay? But I'm not going to do that if you're not going to consistently run and influence that 5 technique and block him by your fake, okay? The other thing that we want to emphasize is the O-line are aggressively blocking to knock D-line and D-ends off the line of scrimmage. This is not a scenario in these tight end and the non-tight end blocking schemes where we're just trying to get our body on a body and cover their body and not move them. We are coming off the ball with authority, with speed, punching and running our feet and trying to knock them off the ball. We're doing that because we want to wear them down and we want to be physical when we do these blocking schemes. The third thing is the running backs need to run full speed downhill to the line of scrimmage. So with this aggressive blocking, we are going to make sure the running backs are going full speed once he makes his cut. He's going to run across here, find that open lane, and he's going 90 degrees downhill as fast as he can get it on all these runs to the tight end side and even in our non-tight end side runs. Okay? So our goal is we're going to attack the line of scrimmage with runs to tight end and no tight end. A few notes with regard to teaching these blocking schemes is that your formation tells the defense where to align. So you can put the tight end to the left or the right, or you can see how when there's no tight end, how the defense is going to put their best defensive end, or how aggressive they're going to be with maybe one end as opposed to another. And you can formation to put them into these blocking schemes that you've coached your offensive linemen on over and over. So use your formations to get the defense aligned where you want them to attack these defensive ends. All right? Then you say, well, I've got 3 of these and I've got 4 of the no tight end blocking schemes, and they're all very similar, but how do I know what order to teach them in? So I've written a whole book on this, but what you should do is chart your opponent's defensive scheme to know what order to teach them in. In other words, I would go in the off season and say, how many 4-3 teams do I play? How many 3-4 teams do I play? How many people play the bear, etc. And whatever the predominant defense was that I was going to face against my 11 opponents, I would start with that blocking scheme. And most of the teams that I played against in my last couple of years were running a 4-3, so that's why I draw everything up against that. Okay? So chart them, figure out what order you want to teach them in. Now, I didn't teach all of these schemes in preseason. I taught the ones that I knew would be most effective against what we needed to do with these defensive ends. And then as we got good at those, I would start putting a few of the others in. But I made sure I had 1 or 2 no tight ends and at least 1 good tight end blocking scheme to slow that defense down. And then as we got good at it, I would put the other ones in as we needed it. Okay? You can block these defenses from different fronts, and I wrote a whole book on that with regard to, being able to take these schemes against different fronts and how would you block them, and I have a whole book on that you can find if you go to my website and BillRennerFootball.com and go under coaching books, and you can find that. All right? The last thing I want to tell you is that I use numbers for the D linemen. So when you see me draw these, you see that I have 5, 0, 3, and a 7. And the reason I do that is when I didn't want a lineman or a coach to say, hey, the defensive end is doing X, Y, and Z, or the defensive tackle. Well, that doesn't mean anything to me because I don't know where he's aligned, because a defensive end could be a 7, he could be a head up at 8, or you could call it a 6, whatever you use, or he could be a 9. So there's 3 different ways to align. And same with the defensive tackle. He could be a 1, a 2, or a 3. So unless I know where he is aligned on the guard or on the defensive on the tight end, it doesn't matter to me. I can't make sense of that. So I always use the numbers, and I make the offensive linemen and the other coaches talk to me in terms of the numbering scheme, so I know exactly where that guy is. Because obviously, if the guy's playing a 7 technique, blocking down with the tight end is a really good blocking scheme. You have an advantage. So if you just tell me defensive end, I don't know that he's a 7 or a 9, because I really wouldn't want to run a sweep against a 9 technique. All right, I would run belly or some other blocking scheme. So that's why you'll always see me use numbers with regard to using these blocking schemes.